So as Udit also mentioned, so these are the points that we would be covering today. So starting off with the very basic question as to why do you need a CPA qualification in Canada? Like, we would like to give more and more examples today so that you can resonate to our journey, how we went about it. So I came to Canada when I came to Canada it was almost 1.5, 2 years back. I joined as a tax specialist with Coca-Cola. So I worked there for around 6 to 7 months before I got my CPA designation. So it was only after my CPA designation that, market was more acceptable to my candidature about being a tax manager, because starting manager levels and above, by all means need a CPA designation. That is a prerequisite. So it would help you to grow in your journey, in the internal promotions as well.
And it was the same case with me when I came to Canada back in 2022. I joined Deloitte in the external audit department. In there, because I knew that in Deloitte, I only needed a CPA designation when I would qualify for senior manager in there, right? So I was an assistant manager, and I knew that I had a couple of years and I could take my sweet time to do it. But then eventually, when I was talking to a couple of my mentors, they encouraged me to get it done and just get done with it. But after I completed my CPA, I realized that there's like a whole plethora of opportunities in the market that open up to you. You get that respect from people when you tell them that you are a CPA Canada. So it is it is a very respectful and a very esteemed degree for sure, and just like CA India. But the only difference being that people here don't know CA India, right? So
Yeah. So when you say to people that you are a CPA here, that is when you get that, respect and that sort of eyes from the people that, okay, that we can rely on this person.
yeah, and just to motivate you on one more thing here, that right after clearing our CPA, both of us, immediately switched jobs, and we are both now managers in our respective
Yeah.
companies, which is something that could not have happened if, we did.
Had it not been for
Yeah,
CPA.
yeah.
And when we guys were also CA India, you would get questions from your neighbors or your friends all day in day out. Okay, how do I deal with this tax issue, or how do I deal with this tax issue? So all of you here would resonate that we cannot address these sort of questions in Canada. CPA would allow you to do that at least to a certain extent. When you would go through the CPA curriculum, at least the CFE curriculum, if you go through the at least the major parts, you should be able to answer those tax questions and even the accounting sort of questions. And any of you here who are wanting to go for their own tax practice or accounting practices in the future, CPA is the way to go.
Okay. Moving on to the most asked question that we have.
So this is the most important slide here.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, as an Indian CA, what do you need to first start with your CPA journey? Right? So now the first thing is that we would cover is what documents are required when you're starting with the student registration process. So there's three things. First is the good standing certificate. Now we all know as Indian CAs that we can apply for the good standing certificate on the SSP portal, right? You have to do that on the SSP portal, but what happens here is that it's not stated anywhere, but the CPA Ontario or whatever CPA provincial body you have, they require the CA India Institute to send the good standing certificate directly to them. So it's not like you get the certificate after you apply on the SSP portal and you can directly share with them. They will come back to you and ask you that, we want the institute to send it to us directly.
Yeah.
And that could take a lot of time if you are very crunched in terms of the timelines that you're registering. So just know this beforehand, that when you apply for your good standing certificate, send an email to the institute on their email ID. We can share that with you if any of you need them. Send them an email that, can you please, this is the request number or whatever that I've raised a request. Can you please send this good standing certificate directly to this email ID for CPA Ontario or CPA whatever provincial body yours is.
Yeah.
So that's one.
Yeah. Second thing that you would need is VES. Most of us get it through if you are applying through Canadian PR. So then you can get converted your PR VES to ICAP. So this is something, it's sort of a transition to the VES that you need for CPA. So that is different, that you applied for PR. So that one won't work. So VES would be required. And then the third thing is the resume that all of us have.
Yeah,
So
and it's a
these,
basic resume. We get a number of questions on the resume, like, what sort of resume? Is
yeah,
it something different, a different format that we have to prepare? It's nothing different. It just has to be, your resume that includes all your practical experience that you
along
have.
with timelines so that they
Yeah.
know, okay, how much experience do you have? So, these sort of things. So these three things, and even VES is not required if you have more than 5 years of experience. So it is just the good standing certificate and the resume. A special thing to call out here.
But more
Yeah,
than 5 years of post qualification
yeah.
experience. So please note that this 5 years does not apply to or does not include your
Articleship.
articleship experience.
Yeah. And a special thing to call out here, like for anyone here who has less than 2 years of post qualification experience, they cannot, apply as a CPA Canada through the CFE route. They would have to go through the entire long
Yeah.
process.
So this is one more important thing that you can get the benefit of this MOU only after you have 2 years of post qualification experience. So that's a very important
Mhm.
thing. So you need to have that experience before you can actually apply.
Yeah. And the timelines that currently CPA Institute is providing is minimum 12 weeks. So this is 3 months time. And yeah, so the registration cost is 800 plus taxes. And special things to call out again is until you become a member or become a CPA, 675 you would need to pay annually until you become or qualify as a CPA.
Yeah, and these are called the annual student dues.
Yeah.
So I just want to recapitulate on the documents required. So good standing certificate and resume is required by everybody, right? Obviously, those who are Indian CAs and have more than 2 years of post qualification experience, right? In case of VES, what happens is that if you have less than 5 years of post qual experience, but more than two, of course, then you need to get the VES done. For example, for me, I did not have, I think I had some 4 years.
Yeah.
Or 4.5 years of post qualification experience.
Yeah.
So I had to get my VES done. And like Ravneet said, it's not a very complicated process because I had VES applied during my PR.
Through PR.
I just had to upgrade my report. There's an option when you will log in on the VES website to upgrade report. You don't have to upload any documents again. It's just a matter of the fee. You just have to pay the fee. When they ask for documents, just skip it because they already have your database.
Yeah.
So that report, I think you receive that within 10 days.
Yeah.
So it's
That's very
about
fast.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have more than 5 years of post qualification experience, then you don't need VES at all.
Yeah. So like these documents are something you would have within 2 to 4 weeks, like your good standing vest, etc. Then once you apply to CPA Ontario, the minimum timeline is 3 months. So now talking about timelines, moving to student registration, specifically to call out for anyone here who is targeting May 25 attempt, this is the time to go. Why we say that? So we are almost approaching the end of November. So if you start registering today, you would get registered like December, Jan, and Feb. Like end of Feb, you would be able to register as a student.
Yeah.
So there are two steps. So one is registering as a CPA student. Second is you register for the CFE exam. And if you see the exam enrollment date here are until Feb 24. So you need to be a CPA student before Feb 24. And obviously you won't like, becoming a student at Feb 20 and then registering and having all
Being
that
in that tight
anxiousness.
spot.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, anyone here. So this weekend, in a couple of days, you have to start with your registration process. Otherwise, the CP Ontario may come back and say that, you may not be able to register for May 25 itself.
Yeah, because we've had these instances that like a couple of our students, they wanted to go for September attempt this
Yeah.
September, and then they reached out to the institute with the documents, and then the institute just directly replied to them that you're already late for this attempt,
Yeah.
so we can take you in for the next one, but you won't be able to apply for this one.
So this was very important information for if we talk about the next attempt, September 25, you can start today as well, but ideally like just initiate before Jan end so that your registration is completed well before the timeline. So CFE exam enrollment for September 25, tentatively, like the dates are not out yet, but we expect should be around this time. So before May 27, you need to be a student. And for to be a student, it takes like 3 to 4 months almost. So you need to factor into everything. And the CFE exam cost, so once you are a CPA student paying this 800 plus taxes, and you are, within say May 25 date. So the exam cost works out to be 1700 plus taxes.
Yeah, and this is only like the CFE exam cost, includes all the 3 days.
Yeah, so very important slide. Any questions? We can take that later on, perhaps.
Yeah, for now we'll just
Move on.
continue with the session.
Yeah.
Yes.
So moving on. So CFE structure, for those who are not still aware, we would, just run it past through all of you. So there are 3 days, day one, day two, and day three. So the first day is of 4 hours. Then we have day two of 5 hours and day three for 4 hours again. So in the first case, talking about day one, it is less of technical sort of things, but it is more strategy related. They would ask you questions that say if this company is launching or wants to launch this product, should they launch or not? And you need to take into account quantitative factors, qualitative factors, and run through some quantitative analysis, which they won't ask specifically, but you need to judge as to what sort of quantitative analysis they are asking. So doing all of those, there are 4 questions, normally 4 AOs, assessment opportunities, we call it. So after you complete those 4 AOs, at the end, you as a CPA need to make a decision as to, okay, these are the 5 decisions or questions I had. I need to select 4 of these based on some constraint, could be a money constraint, something like that. So this day one is less of technical based, but more of strategy based. And the focus areas, as as per our experience, is that you need to complete all questions or all AOs. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, like Ravneet mentioned, day one is not technical. So there is no like IFRS or any other technicals involved in day one. Day one is completely based on your decision making, the way you support your opinions, the way you're able to kind of analyze the situation and make your own notes and everything about it. So that's day one. The most important thing on this slide for everybody who's new to this is that day one is evaluated separately from day two and day three. So day two plus day three are marked together. Like if you pass it or you fail it, it's together. So for example, say if you cleared day two, but then in any one case of day three you flunked maybe, right? So that would mean that you have to reattempt both day two and day three again. Whereas in day one, like day one is a separate assessment altogether. Like we've had a couple of friends who were
Like
able
clear day
to,
two and day three, but couldn't clear day one.
yeah,
So the in the next attempt, day two and day three, you don't have to give again,
yeah,
and it would be just be day one.
yeah,
And now that we are talking about attempts, like you have a total of 3 attempts that you can use to qualify as a CPA.
yeah, that it's only 3 attempts that you have. Also one thing that I was wanting to mention is that by the sound of it, it always looks like day one is going to be very easy.
Yeah.
Because like we say, there's no technicals, it's only how you analyze it and everything. But once you actually start your preparations, you would realize that it is actually day one that you'll also hear from a lot of people that day two, day three still technicals, and you can work on that and you spend most of your time on that. But a lot of people flunk in day one just because they take it very lightly. You need to have very clear strategy if you really want to clear day one.
And many students do not start day one until the end of,
Yeah,
just 1 month before, which is sort of fine. But before that, you still need to know, you need to have that strategy. Otherwise, you would be in a state of anxiousness. Okay, I do not know anything about day one,
yeah,
because if you do not clear day one, you're not a CPA anymore.
yeah.
So, day two and day three are equally important, but day one is relatively easier, but you need to spend time. Like it involves time always.
Yeah. In terms of day two and day three, now day two is the longest and the most lengthiest case. This would be a 5-hour case,
Yeah.
right? And then it's only one case. So you can imagine that if you're writing or attempting any one case and it continues for 5 hours, you can imagine how long of a case it would be. So
Yeah.
it's only one case. And now here comes your elective. So you have a choice to select from, I think, 4 electives.
Yeah.
We both went for assurance. Very less people go for any other elective. Why? Because a lot of resources are available for assurance. But if you go out in the market, you won't find much resources for tax, SNG, finance. These are the other 4 like other three electives.
Like there are people in tax, like I was in
Yeah.
tax, and people think, okay, if I do in tax, so is it that, I would get more knowledge? Obviously, you would get more knowledge, but the resources in the market for you to clear that exam is not available.
Yeah.
And then second, companies prefer the people who take tax as an elective, say if you are a tax person.
We've received
So,
this question from
yeah.
a lot of people that, we work in tax, so,
Yeah.
and we want to stay in tax. So if we, choose the elective as tax, would that help us in getting our future jobs?
So like I was a tax person, I chose assurance and I'm good. So,
Yeah.
even if I chose a public accounting firm to work with, so this won't have mattered as long as your tax knowledge or, working knowledge for your own work area is good. So,
Yeah.
so this has no relation to what you choose here.
Yeah. So this is one advice that we'd like to give to all of you, that if you can, try to choose assurance, because assurance is easy. It's relatively very easy to understand.
Yeah.
Very easy to attempt in the exam. There's a
Yeah.
lot of resources that you can
That's the
lean
point.
on. Yeah, lean on, and then it increases the probability of you clearing the exam. So right
Yeah.
now, if we are focusing on clearing the exam, you should go for assurance.
Like there are people who choose finance as well, finance management, like SFM that we used to call in India. But the persons choosing that are very less. So then when you are asking questions and say, this ICP group also, you would have less persons responding to those. So that sort of thing. So that's more of a strategic call. So day two, so coming back to day two, what day two is all about. So day one, we have discussed. On day two, we have this elective. Consider you have chosen assurance. And then uh, normally there are 13 questions or 13 or 14 questions. Consider 13 questions. So you would have around 7 questions on elective, say assurance. And then the remaining 6 questions would be on financial reporting or FA, and then management accounting. So there could be
Management
any
accounting is basically the costing subject that we used to have back in India.
So we have like, yeah.
And FR is the accounts
Okay.
subject.
So like cost and accounts. So there could be 3 and 3 questions for each of them, or could be 4 and 2, or could be 6 or 0 as well.
Yeah,
Like there
yeah,
have been
cases. So
there.
it can be any combination. So we've heard a lot of people also say that, what can we expect, or should we only prepare FA, or should we only hope for MA to come? We always say that you have to be prepared for both, because you don't know the mix that would come. But rest assured that it's only these two, FA and MA, that are
Yeah.
tested on day two, and not the other competencies.
Yeah. And the last point on day two, if you see the focus area, so you are, when you get into the process, you would know more. On day two, your main objective is to get depth. Depth is like, your technicality and competence get tested in your elective area, which is assurance. So day two is the only day that you get tested for your elective, not
And
day
we
two.
can't emphasize on
Yeah.
this enough.
You need to know that assurance, you have only one day to clear. Attempt and clear. You have questions, a couple of questions on day three as well, but day two is your only opportunity to become, to show your depth in assurance.
And if you're not able to show the depth in assurance, and you do all the 6 questions of FA, MA right, you would still fail the exam.
Yeah.
Because this day is all about elective.
Yeah.
Right? Like mostly, not that you'd leave the 6 years and then only do the 7 and you would pass. That's
Yeah.
not what we are saying.
Yeah.
But the focus is on the elective.
On the elective. Coming to day three is 4 hours. Number of cases are 3, so you have roughly 70, 80, and 90-minute cases. Like, and if you would total it up, it's like almost 240 minutes. And then the competencies which are tested are, now this day is a sort of, jack of all trades. Like you would have all 6 competencies in the exam, and the focus on day three specifically is breadth. Like the focus is breadth. You cannot, if you do not know tax. So people say, we do not know tax, let's
And
just
skip tax,
let's
and
just
we do
skip
all
tax.
the other subjects.
So this is not how it works. If they say that this guy has not achieved breadth, or basically knowledge, has not showcased knowledge of tax at all, you lose out on day three and then day two as well, because they both are evaluated together. So your focus is breadth, but yes, you have financial accounting and management accounting questions as well on day three, where you can showcase some depth. So the depth now, summarizing. So day two and day four, sorry, for financial accounting and management accounting, the depth is together evaluated on day two and day three both. Assurance, depth is evaluated only on day two, and the breadth of all the other competencies is evaluated only on day 3, because that is the only day when you would have questions on those
Yeah.
competencies.
For example, Ravneet said that there's three cases. Now, if you decide that you want to leave tax subject altogether, you will have tax question in all the three cases.
Yeah.
That means that you're leaving or not attempting that tax question in any of the case, which means it is giving a very clear indication to the examiner that
Yeah.
this person does not know tax.
Yeah.
So, you're putting in yourself into that spot if you leave any one subject.
Any one subject, and people do this, and people do flunk on this just for the silly mistake, and then they are, they have to give that attempt again. So going forward, so now addressing things that, why CFE does become challenging, why we emphasize at the beginning of, all the slides that CFE is not so easy and why it is difficult. So starting off, one is time constraint. Uh, you have 4, 5, and 4 hours, respectively in all of the 3 days. Consider just day 2, 5 hours. It seems a lot, but you have 13 questions, and you need to manage depth, and you need to prioritize. There would be questions that you may miss. So time constraint. Once you start writing cases, you would realize that you could attempt only say 7 or 8 questions out of 13. So this would be the case with you.
This will happen when you actually start writing cases. You will realize that you miss out on a lot of years.
Yeah.
And by the look of it, it sounds like, oh, 5 hours is a lot and there's only 13 questions. But
Yeah.
then trust us, it's a lot.
And
People always miss a couple of years in the exam also.
And one main thing which people do, people say, okay, I could attempt only 8 questions. When like they are practicing cases. Okay, I could attempt only 8 questions. Let me write all the 13 questions, and then I will submit to whosoever person is checking your cases. And then they write that 5 hour case in 7 hours, and then they keep doing this. You cannot. So that is what we
You
call as
should
risk of
not.
overflow. Yeah. So like risk of overflow, that you do not constrain yourself in exam like situation, and that is the worst mistake that you can do.
Yeah, don't like whenever you start practicing, just don't exceed the time limit, because then you won't ever get used to that pressure and thinking of now what should I do now. I only have 1 hour left and I still have 4 AOs to go.
Yeah.
So now your brain will not be able to process how will I manage those 4 AOs in that time frame. Because if you keep giving yourself that comfort that okay, I know that I missed out on say 3 AOs, but then okay, let me take another 1 hour and finish the other three also just for checking.
Yeah.
That's not a good approach.
Then comes like lack of strategy. So say we were emphasizing on day 2 that elective is your main subject, but you start, because the first question would be financial accounting always, more or less, but you start off with financial accounting, and you do financial accounting and management accounting, like those 6 questions you do for out of that 5 hours, you are hanging around for 3.5 hours, but then you are giving only 1.5 hours to your main assurance thing that you had to get depth on. So this is one of the major miss outs. So you do not strategize, because the issue is you do not know what your focus area should have been at the first place. Had you known that assurance is your main, you would have maybe started with assurance.
Yeah.
So,
Then computerized exam and open book also. I'll take these 2 points together because in computerized exam in India, back when we were doing CA, we were very accustomed to doing the pen and paper exam. So we used to have that speed in doing that because that is what we've done all our lives. But then here it's a computerized exam. There can be challenges with typing speed. A lot of people, like even with me, I don't have a very fast speed per se. Like it's normal. But then there are people who don't have like average speed also. So for them also, the more cases you practice, the more you develop on your speed and build up on that. Because if you're somebody who really writes like really slow and take your time, then you need to practice ahead of time. And then open book, by the looks of it and by the sound of it, you feel like okay, it's an open book exam, so we can refer to nausea wherever we are stuck or if we don't know anything. But if you are already getting a hint by our conversations, you would know that it's a time constrained exam.
yeah.
You cannot refer to nausea very easily until you know where you can refer to it and what you are looking for in the nausea. Because now nausea is also like it's like a bible of all standards. So you have to find your way through things and you don't have that time during the exam.
Yeah.
Right? You need to know ahead that, okay, if it's an intangibles question and it's the 6 pointers of whether a cost will be development cost and
Yeah.
it will be capitalized or not, you need to know that, okay, it's the intangible standard, it's the development cost like page. You will navigate there directly. If you start with the intangible standard and you're scrolling, looking for it, you will waste a lot of time in there.
Yeah.
So that's the point that by open book, it is comforting that you have a book that you can refer to in the exam, but that can be done only when you are accustomed to using it already.
Yeah. So maybe I can cover the balance pointers on this slide. So coming again to, time constraint. So when we say like 3 days back-to-back exams, day one, day two, day three, today you are still in the preparation stage, say for May 25. Once you start writing cases, you will know writing a 4-hour case or even a 5-hour is like so exhausting. And once you come back from your day one case, which is like 9 to 1, then you come back, then you need to revise for your next day, and then because it's a 9 a.m. start, you need to wake up in the morning as well. So day one, day two, day three, by the time day three comes, it's like you are already exhausted,
You're so
and you do
exhausted.
not get time for revision. So
Yeah.
we will come how to counterattack these challenges as well, like in the further slides. But this is one of the major points which we do not like we are not used to. Even in CA final, we had at least one day of break in which we used to revise, etc. And then so this is between day one, day two, and day three. Then say on day one itself, writing a 4-hour case or a 5-hour case in an exam like situation, not, and if you like take a break, it's like almost one question you have missed. Like the washrooms are very far off, very far off.
You'll
So
see
that's
people running to the restrooms and coming back
because they do not
because
want to miss on time.
it takes 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
5 minutes means that you could have attempted one AO,
Yeah.
right?
Like in my case, I did like sharing our own experiences. In my case, I knew if I am taking one break, I'm missing one question and potentially maybe a day two. I don't know. And for Guneet, like she had to take a break.
I
She
had to take a break in day
Yeah.
two, and it so happened that I did miss 1.5 AO,
Yeah.
and I just like I came back home and I was like, oh shit, I shouldn't have taken that break. I wish I could have controlled,
Yeah.
like things like that. It can be so pressurizing,
Yeah.
and the people around you in the auditorium hall, they're typing, and
Yeah.
like it's a lot of stress, and
It's
it
really
gets really
exhausting.
difficult.
And we are not used to it. Like every person, like consider you are into day two, you are still reading your case, and people have started typing, and then you are under that anxiousness or nervousness. Okay, they have already read and they have also started typing, so your focus from reading is out. So if you take 2 to 5 more minutes, it's still fine. But if you are taking more than 10, 12 more minutes than the people who have already started writing, then you are under that pressure that they have already started writing, and where am I missing out on? So you get that issues. So
Okay, and the last thing was that there's only 3 attempts for CP, which
yeah.
we like already covered. Now we'll cover a couple more of them in terms of the preparation. What happens is that students normally spend a lot of time on the technicals because you just feel that, oh, if I don't know the technicals, how will I even write a case or attempt a case, right? So what happens is that students normally they spend 2 months, 3 months on technical, like the technicals, but then you don't practice writing the exam, and that is where you will be evaluated. So say after 3 months you are very strong on your technicals, you know everything about the IFRS, but you are only left with 1 month for the case writing practice.
Yeah.
Now when you start writing cases, you don't have that speed, you don't have the CPA way, because there is a CPA way of
like a specific
attempting.
structure, like you need to follow a structure. It's not like if you do not follow the structure, they won't award you. But if you follow the structure, they surely know, okay, Guneet has written the issue under consideration here, the technical here, she has linked the technical and the facts
Yeah,
here,
and
and
it's
given
very
the conclusion.
important. It's not like we are recommending that you do
Yeah.
it. It's like you have to do it. You have to follow that structure,
Yeah.
because if you don't, it's not like plain question answers that we had in India that, okay, what will happen to this? And you just write a 1 paragraph answer. It's not that. So my point was where I was coming from, that you spend so much time on technicals, but when it comes to case writing, you can't do justice to it.
Yeah.
So what happens during the exam is that even though you attempt the whole thing, you don't follow the structure, you don't do what the institute wanted you to do.
Yeah.
So even after doing all the technicals, you lose you lose out on the actual exam, because the actual exam is case writing, right? It's not technicals.
Yeah.
So students need to know where to stop on the technicals and when to start with the case writing practice.
And this is one of the major issues that people all across, even on this call, would be facing with time, that you are never ready for technicals, because technicals is a very
They're very
it's
vast.
like vast, because many people here have not are not very much versed with IFRS. They have done Ind AS, or maybe the basic accounting standards. So you first get accustomed with IFRS, and then how do you relate to those case when you're writing.
And IFRS is only one part. There's
Yeah.
ASPE, and then there's other subjects
Yeah.
altogether. So it's not only
IFRS.
IFRS.
So
It's so
IFRS
much more.
and like taxation, people discount taxation so much because you just need to tick it off on day
Day
three.
three.
That's why people also leave it. But once you get into taxation, you do not have the right resources in the market, to get maybe like summary notes for taxation. You get and you just read it through and you're good. So that is not how it goes. So yeah.
So these are like more of preparation related issues, like
And like one example, maybe from preparation related issues that I can give, uh, consider like this is how it, started off. Like Guneet, it was very much into details and, was more oriented towards writing all the right headings, all the right
like the
facts,
presentation.
like the presentation part. So you cannot be,
A
that
perfectionist.
a perfectionist. So that is the issue that she was facing and was not able to even complete
Complete
her
my
days.
AOs.
And
Yeah.
we were attempting together, like we both had the same attempt. And in my case, I'm not that much of a perfectionist, because I was focusing that I need to complete all the AOs. I used to complete all the 7 AOs on my day three exam, but she was doing like three, four, sometimes five. She was always missing out. So that is where the lag is. You need to make your way out how the exam wants you to do. Not that, oh, okay, I'm attempting five and I will attempt five of these questions, but in completeness. So that is not how, it generally works.
And then debriefing a case is also very important. What is debriefing is that it's once you attempted the case, what will you do? How will you take your learnings? How will you know if you did something right or what wrong you did, and how will you improve it? Now, that is where debriefing comes in. Debriefing actually means that for every past year case that you attempt, CPA board issues the actual response for that case, right? So what you do is that you take your case that you attempted, and then you take the institute's response and you kind of mark it, or you get it marked from somebody else, like maybe an external marker or something. And then you see that where did you lag? Where did you stand? What competency did you reach in your answer? And what better you could do to, get a C, get a competent response. So that is what is called debriefing. As important as it is to write the exam and practice writing exams, it is even more important to debrief, because when you debrief, that is how you will see that, oh, that is how they attempted this
Yeah.
question, that is how they brought in the gap analysis from nausea and they related it to the case facts. So that is debriefing, where you are learning technicals also, you're learning the exam presentation also, and then overall you get really confident, and then the next time a similar question comes in the exam, you would already know that, okay, this is how the institute wants me to respond to.
Like that's a very good point that we would cover, also in how are we counterattacking the strategies, like the issues, is that technical learning is not just you do technical learning, then you do case writing and you're good. No, it's like you do basic technical learning, and then when you are doing case writing and debriefing, that is where the actual learning lies, and you need to give yourself that time. People spend 3 months on technicals and then just 1.5 months on case writing. So that is, that balance doesn't work out well. So going about how you should, counterattack all of these challenges, many of it we have discussed while we were discussing the issues, but we will still go through it. Like people, you should go through and write mock cases like we used to do in, even, some of the students used to do in CA final as well. Like writing, actually doing that 4, 5, and 4 hour sitting, not back to back, is so because that is difficult, like day one, day two, day three. But at least when you are writing a case, do not break the case. Like you need to give one sitting of 4 hour, then a one sitting of 5 hour, whether it is evening 7 to 11, but you need to do that. Otherwise, you won't get into that habit, and it will always be an issue for you. And then, I think Guneet has covered already when nausea should be used, what sort of structures we should use, writing in the CPA way, making the best use of exam days. So this is also very important from exam related things, like when you complete your day one, write your day one, you come back around 2 to 3 p.m. What do you do on that day? What do you do on day two? What do you do on your day three?
You prepare for the
Yeah.
next day, because
Yeah.
there has to be quick revisions. So you
Yeah.
should have something handy that you're able to revise
Yeah.
kind of the whole syllabus. And then, on the day of the exam, you don't feel like, oh, I did this, but I can't remember it now,
Yeah.
because then that would be a very bad spot to
Like for
create.
example, right after doing day one, Guneet and me like revise together all of it, all of the financial accounting standards at a very high level, just discussing among ourselves as to what these standards had actually in there, and then some bit of management accounting. So basically, doing things which you can miss out, uh, you know, in
Miss
learning.
out
Yeah,
remembering
remembering.
during the time of the exam.
So, again, avoiding the perfectionist attitude, as we were mentioning, how to do outline of a case. I think that's more of a detailed question.
Yeah. And even like, learning how to debrief cases, because like I said, debriefing. Now, if you imagine it is a 5 hour case that you would be debriefing. So you need to know how you will debrief it. Otherwise, you can literally spend 7 hours debriefing one case.
Yeah.
And it would still not feel enough, because there's so much. Because you will see that when the CPA board issues their like responses, they are normally like one AO would normally last 1.5 page. Now that is not something that they are expecting you to do, but
Yeah.
because they are the institute, they have to write perfect responses, right? They have to include all the guidance, they have to cover every possible aspect, so that the students can understand like the 100% depth into any question.
So one major thing that you should keep in mind, I think then we can skip the slide, is that there is no perfect solution. So
Exactly.
very one example, like one basic example that I want to give here. There is a quant or qual question, like a quantitative or a qualitative question. So when we are doing, say, qualitative, I write, say, 6 points, that these are the pros or these are the cons, but I do not describe them. Guneet, on the other hand, writes those pros and cons. She writes maybe two or say three or four, not six, but she describes or explains.
Relates them to the
Yeah,
question in a
relates
way.
them to the facts. Like,
Support,
yeah,
I support my answer. Like whatever I'm concluding, I am
yeah,
able to support that fully.
yeah,
Even if that is wrong,
yeah,
like, and you will see that.
yeah,
And why we're putting an emphasis on this is because there were times that I used to do an FA question, like an accounts question for the exam. When I debriefed it, I saw that the response in the institute was something different. Now
yeah,
there's something called perfect responses. These are responses from students who cleared CPA and they got like amazing grades in
yeah.
all the questions. So like there you can find these perfect responses for a few cases. So I was referring to one of the perfect responses, and I saw that the student had a conclusion which was like literally the
Completely opposite.
opposite of what the institute had issued in their report. Yet that student got a C, like he was a competent in that response, and I was so amazed. Then that is when I understood that it's not about what you are writing and if you are writing it correct or not. It's just about what is your analysis and how strongly you're able to support your conclusion to your analysis.
Because it is more like you are, say, in a industry environment. You are a CPA in your company, I am a CPA in my company, and both of our analysis in our different companies could be different, but how you justify to that, to the management or to the CFO or the CEO, so that is what matters. And are you giving conclusions, are you giving recommendations? So these sort of things or these sort of strategies are more important rather than just writing points. So this is not a commerce or BCom exam that you just write pointers. You need to justify and recommend things.
Yeah. And the last point that I want to cover from this slide is that normally you would hear a lot of people say that you have to get maximum C grading to pass the CPA. That is not correct.
Yeah.
First of all, there is C, which is competent, and then there is CD, that is competent with distinction.
Yeah.
Now, C and CD carry the same marks, like when they evaluate you, and you get C or CD, it's like both of them get the same marks. It's not like if you get a CD, you get say 3 points, and for C you get 2. No, if you get 2 points for C, you also get 2 points for CD. So what people do is that they try to write answers with a lot of perfection, hoping that, oh, I can get a CD in this one because this is a topic that I know.
Maybe
And
say
you
like,
end up spending a
yeah,
lot of time in there.
maybe say Gunita wrote like 9 points in a question she knew very well. That is of like you're wasting your time. If you actually had to write only 5 points, you should try to limit yourself to five. And how you know that you should have written only five? That would come with experience of writing cases. That
Yeah.
okay, only five were required and I wrote nine. So
Yeah.
that is how you save your time.
So this is C and CD, but then there's C and something called RC, which is below C. So RC is reaching competency. So RC normally has a little less weightage than C, but what we are trying to say here is that you should not only focus on C, also focus on RCs, because even if you do 2 questions and you get RCs in both of them, that means that you still were able to secure one C, instead of, maybe in the exam you thought that, okay, I'll miss out on 2 questions and I'll write something and I'll get it to that much perfection that I'll get a CD in there, or I'll get a C in there. So that means that you don't have to put extra time in questions, even if you're able to kind of do a question reasonably, thinking that, okay, this I've attempted it to that extent that I can get a C.
Yeah.
Just leave it there. Don't waste more time.
Yeah.
Instead, move over to another question and try attempting it that much that you could also get another RC in there.
Yeah.
So RCs are also very important. Just don't focus on Cs, that you feel like you've only 5 minutes left and there's one question and you feel like, oh, I can't get a C in there, so maybe I'll just maybe just start with it and not complete it.
Yeah.
No, that's not right. Maybe if you start writing it in a good way, you could attempt it such that you could still get an RC in there, right? So don't leave that question.
So like, these are the sort of tips and tricks that, we would keep on giving you from time to time whenever you have any questions, or we keep on conducting these sort of webinars. And yeah, if you have like any questions, please feel free to reach out or drop in the ICP group. So
There are a lot of queries. Do you want to continue over here, or or would you like to take a queries first?
I think we like to continue because we do have a
Okay,
couple of
yeah,
more slides, and
yeah,
then
like
we can
makes
take.
sense. Okay, done. Thank you.
maybe around 12 or maybe we can start.
Okay,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Okay.
Okay. So, a very frequent question that we get asked is like, when should you start? Again, this is very subjective, but out of our experience, if you're not getting any leaves or very limited leaves, so start around 4 months before the exams. And if there are companies who offer like almost 2 months of leave, so that is the time to start, or maybe a month before that. So like 2 to 3 months for those candidates.
Just
How?
one thing I want to
Sure.
add in there is that when we say 4 months before exam, 2 to 3 months before exam, we focus a lot on consistency.
Yeah.
If you 4 months before doesn't mean that you
Just started.
just you give maybe 1 hour on Monday and then Tuesday you skip it and then Wednesday you give 2 hours and then
Yeah.
Thursday you give 3 hours. You have to be consistent. Maybe like start by giving 2 or 3 hours, but give that time daily.
Yeah.
That is what we are saying when we say 4 hours, 4 months before, right? Just, yeah, wanted to clarify.
Yeah. So again, another question that we get like quite a lot from students, and this is like how and where to start, because the technical material people should be knowing what is their source of technical material at this point of time. For people who are appearing for May 25 attempts, you should, start strategizing as to what your technical material should be. Case writing can still come in a little later, maybe Feb, Marchish, but you need to know what is your technical source material. So a couple of materials that are available in the market. One is the CPA study mat, which we have Nausea, we have ebooks. So we would in the next slide discuss as to what are the pros and cons of each of these. Then are the comprehensive tutor course for the the tutors who offer videos, notes, and also case writing, like that comprehensive package. And then there are people who also offer crash courses like us, for taxation, financial reporting, assurance, and then summary notes. So this is about the technical material, and these are the three kind of
Options that you will have
that
when once you start with your preparation.
yeah. And then the case writing, the questions that you will get with time is like how to write. I think debrief, Guneet has discussed as to how you should debrief. How many cases to write, we will cover in the following slides, and how to get your cases evaluated. You are writing cases good, you are debriefing on their own, but do you also need to get that, externally evaluated?
Okay, so now this is a comparison chart between the three types of technical materials that we discussed. First is the CPA Nausea. You get access to Nausea and ebooks once you complete your exam registration. So you will get access over them on the email. But just note that, like we said, the CPA Nausea and the ebooks, these are very vast. Like, obviously, there's no cost because you get that as part of your registration that you do. So the pros that we would say is like that obviously it's cheap, like you don't have to shell anything else. And then there's full coverage, like rather if there's word more than full, I would use that because it
Like,
they
do you
include
remember
all
the study
the
mats? Like,
yeah.
do you remember the study mats of ICAI? Like, it is
Yeah.
very much similar to those.
Yeah, it's like more voluminous than those as well because they just have all the standards stated in there, everything in there. So it's like very hard to navigate and to actually know what is important for me, like what should I focus on as a student, for a student who's attempting exam. Because like you would know that normally here all of us are working, so you have to carve out time, and then you need to know where you're putting that time in, because you don't have extra time to just keep wasting here and there.
And especially, when you have all of these technical materials, so again, you are focusing all of your time reading these technicals. So when you have limited time, you need to manage that, accordingly. Then we have tutor-led courses where there are a couple of tutors who are in the market. So the estimated cost, which we see, is averagely anywhere between 2 to 3,000. They do leave a couple of things like 1% here and there, which may not be important, or which may be very voluminous. But again, they would have almost everything in the whatever the syllabus is.
Yeah. So there's like that is also a pro, but again, con, because these classes, they're normally like very long for an estimate. It's like 120 hours to 150 hours. Now you can calculate that if we are talking about 120 hours, and you're spending like 3 hours per day, that means you need 40 50 days.
So that's like 2 months of technical study, and that is only listening to videos.
Listening to videos, and then again not knowing what to focus on or how to put that technical to actual use. Right, because it's more of understanding. You would understand what's happening in those technicals, but then when you have to write in the exam, you have to write it in your own words, right? So like it's very different, and plus it's expensive.
So then the third part is so this is the part that we both have been doing for the last 1 year or so, crash courses and summary notes. So,
and we started with this because when we started helping out students, and we used to tell how we prepared it. Like a lot of students reached out to us and they were like, can we have like a sample of your notes, like what you did, how you prepared it, and how you were able to kind of clear like in the first attempt, both of you together. That is when we actually came out with this. So
and then people also, we started requesting that, if the sort of studies that you used to do in your, last 1 month or so, so how you used to do it. So that is when we also came up with some crash courses. And when we say crash courses, it is not like, just like 40-50% coverage. We do cover 90% of the exam oriented stuff or syllabus which we have, and this is like everything which would have been tested in the last 10 year of exams. You would have at least everything that of that, and obviously the other part. So even 90% exam coverage, when we mean, is that that is what we pass on to you and discuss on the videos, but the remaining 10% is what we keep, if just in case if you want to refer to.
Yeah.
And we like try uh, to focus on the areas which are more important, even out of this 90%,
Yeah.
as to what 20-25% is more important or have been regularly
So
tested.
basically, relying more on smart study than
Yeah.
hard study, like studying the whole standard and learning everything in deep. Like that is not something we advocate on, but rather spending your time very meaningfully, so that when you actually write cases, you feel that, oh wow, I remember this. I did this in like I've read this in the as part of my notes, and I do remember. I know what I have to write. So just that. And another benefit is that since it's crash courses, it's not very expensive. It's like very reasonable costed. So, we know that a lot of people have actually financial
budget
crunches.
constraint.
Yeah. So for that.
Okay, so just a bit about how and what we are doing in the crash courses. So currently, the crash courses that we have are for financial reporting, tax, and third one is strategy governance and assurance. So financial reporting we have already covered in seminars, and we have received very good feedback, and there have been cases where right after the CFE exam, like people called us and texted that everything that came in the exam, they were able to they had it on top of their head.
And they
Even
didn't even have to refer Nasha, which
refer
was like the
Naksha.
most amazing thing to listen to.
Yeah,
Uh,
like when you are actually doing these subjects in just 17 hours, like three competencies, what it allows you to, that you can do multiple revision of
Yeah.
these. You even don't have to refer to notes. You can maybe try starting of the video again, and
Yeah, just
studying.
do those revisions. Another thing is that these are recorded lectures. So we had students who were from based out of Vancouver, British Columbia, and Calgary as well. So it played like a very nice role, because then they were able to access them, and they had access to these lectures up until the attempt. So that ways you're able to revise them multiple times, and you can always watch them at your own convenience. Like we mentioned, we focused only on the focus on the important stuff. So it's smart study.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then obviously the issue that people have been facing, that that they have to give time to technicals quite a lot before they even can jump into case writing. So this is a very good solution, that you can get that confidence on the technicals in a limited time, so that eventually you can start writing your cases.
Yeah. And in
So
terms of management accounting and finance, because these are more numerical based subjects, and there's not a lot of technical that you can go to, we have summary notes for
Yeah.
that as well.
And sorry, this was four main competencies, like financial reporting, tax, SNG, and assurance. So four in crash courses, and two we have summary notes for. And the last part, if this is also what we have been doing. So any student who requires any case marking support when the time comes, so
On an as need basis,
Yes.
we did launch packages also last time, but
Yeah.
then it was a little
it was
difficult for
really tiring and
both of us to
exhausting,
cope up with
because
everything.
you need to give that quality out as well. So we would be happy to do this maybe this time around as well, but on an as need basis. A couple of slides left before maybe we can pass on to the to
For the
coordinate
questions.
for the questions.
But this is one question we are asked a lot, that how many cases do we have to practice, right? How many cases are enough? So we would say for day one, normally 2 to 3 cases is good, because it gives you a sense of what the exam is like, and how you have to think through it, how you have to complete those AOs in the limited time.
Yeah.
So 2 to 3 cases for day one is enough. For day two, 5 to 8 maximum, not more than that, because like Ramit was mentioning, it's a 5-hour case, and once you just write that 5-hour case, you are so drained that you
Yeah.
feel like you're done for the day. Then you also have to do debriefing, because if you don't do debriefing, like even writing the case is not that fruitful.
Like even if you follow the minimums here, like the minimum of the range, you are good as long as you're debriefing.
Yeah.
So writing a case for 5 hours and then debriefing, even if you're debriefing for 7 hours, that is a good thing, that you are learning quite a lot. But if you're debriefing for 1 hour or 1.5 hours, you are surely missing out on something. So then a couple of questions like, can I check all my cases myself? That is what we call as debrief, but we would surely, suggest that you can maybe ask your friends or maybe some external evaluators to evaluate it for you,
Because
at
then
least a
it's a
couple of
change of
cases.
perspective.
Yeah.
Because somebody else who will look at your case, they will be unbiased, and then they will, give you your improvement points in a better way that you can actually work on, instead of you yourself evaluating your cases.
So how much time should be given for debriefs? I think this is what we have discussed. And is it advisable to get cases externally marked? So a couple of things, when you get cases externally marked, the good thing is that you have a planned schedule. Writing a 5-hour case, you will surely, bail out that I'm not writing this. But if you have a planned schedule that you need to give this Tuesday, you need to give the second case on Monday, you will follow that.
You will have to follow that.
And obviously you learn from experience markers experience as to what they are seeing, like what other students are also writing. They have all the database, so that is how they can give you more valuable feedback that this guy is writing this. You can also tune your responses similarly, and it obviously gives validation if you are on the right path or
Yeah,
not.
if
And
you're getting it marked from somebody who's been doing it from some time, it gives you confidence and validation that, oh, if I got a C in this, it means that I'm doing this right, and I
Yeah.
should continue doing
And honestly,
this.
it's more about validation, and if you can take on the improvements suggested, rightly.
Now there's
Yeah,
another, this is the last
last
slide,
slide.
so please bear with us for just one more minute. We want to cover that the CPA Institute also offers Capstone too. We get asked about this a lot, so that is why we wanted to cover this in the slides. So like we said, Institute offers Capstone too. It's not mandatory to buy, but a lot of students go for it. Why? Because first of all, they give you a schedule. They will give you that, okay, in this week you have to submit say 2 cases or 3 cases, so there's
Yeah.
a fixed number of cases that you submit to them, and then they mark for you, and you can obviously debrief them on your own.
Yeah.
And then they also conduct a 2-day module workshop,
Yeah.
and in which is very basic, I would say, but
Very
like, yeah, maybe like you could do it. It's obviously personal choice, but for the cost,
It's
we
not
could tell
that
you
much
that,
of for value add, I
yeah,
would say.
like the estimated cost is $1,700 only for the Capstone 2. So what happens is you get a couple of cases marked and you get 2 module workshops.
And
So
one
that's
of the
about
cons
it.
which I felt of the persons who pursue Capstone 2 is that when the marked cases come back, so the issue there is that you get more of standard responses. That
Yeah.
if you have written something wrong, you would get some sort of a computerized response, not a very personalized response as to what you actually wrote. Obviously,
Yeah,
that
what
would be
we could
relatable.
have done better.
Yeah.
And why we know it is because when I was with Deloitte, when I was doing my CPA, so Deloitte had it mandated for us to get the Capstone 2. So I have the experience of getting Capstone 2. That is why, like, I can comment on
Yeah.
what it was. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to this, for bearing with us, for all the questions in the chat. We will try to answer them however that says, because we already know that we're on top of the time.
No worries, no worries. We can have
Thank you very
the
much.
questions. So the first question, like, what kind of student? What's the passing percentage you have seen? Like, what has been the passing percentage for your students, or for a typical background?
Yeah, so in the last 5-ish years, or you can say maybe the last 7 to 8 attempts, it's been averagely around 70%. There were years when it was like 73, 74% as well, but averagely it's been around 70%, which is nice, which seems very optimistic and motivational, obviously. But don't take it, right on the number, because as we said, you need to, have that right strategy. So you can be, I don't want you to be, but you can be on that 30%. So, but there are very good chances of
But
getting
still, it's
passed.
very motivating to
It is
see
very
that the
motivating.
pass percentage is really nice, and you don't have to struggle like we had to do back in India for
And
CA.
and like Udit, we had that slide before, but we took it out.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Okay. And another question is for CFE writers who gave exam for once without coaching. Is it advisable to join some coaching for that repeat writers, or self-studies suffice?
I think case marking is a very good approach. So 2 points. One, if you are struggling on very specific subjects, say financial reporting, getting very very specific courses or notes for financial reporting, that sort of thing can
But
help.
I would not recommend going for like a full
No.
tutor-led course because again, the
A lot
hours
of
are
time.
too much. Again, you could go for like the crash course because that will not take a lot of time, but it will give you a lot of grip and confidence on what you are doing.
Like we had repeat writers with us as well in the last attempt, and financial reporting and taxation. So one of the guys took FR course, and then because you do not have to invest so much, so that is nice. And second, I would suggest also to go for case evaluation, not much, but at least 3 to 4 cases.
Yeah,
as
maybe a
to
couple of them so that you
like
get some
where are you missing on.
confidence.
Yeah.
The question is, got to know that there is going to be a change in CPA education program in 2025-2026. Will
So
that affect their exemption?
So I think it was going to be announced this year, but then they delayed it to 2027 for now.
Yeah.
So up until 2027, there's not going to be any change.
Yeah.
We still have the MOU in effect. So it's a really good time to, get done
it
with
through.
your CPA because there's only rumors in the market. Nobody knows what will happen in
But
2027.
good thing is that the rumor of the CFE getting changed in an year or so, so that is out. So we have around 2 to 3 more years here.
2 to 3 more years. And then there are speculations that into 2027, they might, terminate the MOU also. So it's better that you get it done now.
Okay. Another question is, can you please explain the marking system and passing percentage for the exam? Passing percentage we already covered. The marking system.
You want to take that? So
Marking
like
system.
marking system, it is like how many C's, how many RC's, something
Oh,
like that.
okay.
So I think one, the rating of each question or assessment opportunities, Guneet has already discussed. So that like C, CD, RC, and RC is reaching competence, and then NC is non-competence. So that's a rating of a question. So then say if on a day two we have 13 questions or 13 assessment opportunities, the CPA Institute does not give you as to how many questions or assessment opportunities should be C, how many should be RC. Very, very vague number, which is generally considered is that you get 50% C's and 50% RC's. No one has any,
A fixed number.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is for technical part. What and how much do you suggest to study before starting with case writing practice?
I would say 1 month, 1 to 1.5 month you should give yourself.
But again,
Whatever
that
you have
depends
done.
on what
How
what
much time.
course you are following or
Yeah.
how you are doing your technicals.
But like a very general response on this would be 1 to 1.5 months. Whatever you have studied until then, you take a stop at it and then start writing cases. Even if you are writing wrong, that is fine. You will learn with time when you are writing and evaluating cases.
The next question is where to start to begin with for technicals. Should you start with some classes like PASS, Grovey, etc., and what do you evaluate when selecting these preparation providers? I think we have already covered this.
You're right.
And yes, the same question like Neha just asked, is starting from December good enough time for May 2025 or suggest one should be take up to September 2025?
I think it's a good time.
No, it's an amazing time. You have
it's a very
so
good time.
much time. Like for people who are in May attempt, who are writing May attempt,
Yeah.
you have amazing amount of time to start.
Just that be consistent, as
Be
Guneet already
consistent.
mentioned.
Yes, yes. Just be consistent. Like strategize, plan ahead what you want to do, what course you want to go for, if you want to go for case marking from somebody or not. Like, but plan ahead. That's the
Strategize
point.
everything.
Yeah,
And you should be
strategize.
good.
Yeah.
Like when are you actually starting your day one? It's like 1 or 2 months before. How many cases are you trying to get evaluated? So those sort of things, just chalk it out.
Okay, for debriefing case, should we look at perfect response or sample response issued by institute?
See, it's a mix. I would say that for a couple of exams that you write in the start, go for the CPA,
Yeah.
the board issued report,
Perfect response.
because from there you will understand a lot of new things for the start.
Yeah.
But once you have understood a couple of new things from there, then you can move to perfect responses.
Strong responses.
Yeah, strong responses.
So like initially start with perfect responses, which is the board
the
study,
board issued. Yeah.
and then the strong responses.
Yeah.
because those are very easy to understand
Follow and understand.
yeah.
But I would say that when we used to do it, we used to see the strong responses, but
Yeah.
also have the institute responses
Open up.
along with them, because like we said, the recommendations and the actual answer can
Yeah.
differ in both.
Sometimes like we used to read strong responses and we ourselves felt the answer is incorrect, and
Yeah.
then we used to go to the perfect response. What is
To
the
see that how
institute
the
saying here?
institute
Yeah.
responded. So it's a
Okay.
mix.
This is a question from Harsha. I am a qualified chartered accountant with over 5 years of experience, primarily in the banking sector, specializing in the roles such as product controller and financial analyst in the investment banking. Will the CPA board consider this as a relevant practical experience?
Technical question.
Mhm.
Would like to pass, like we don't have
Okay.
specific expertise because we
Okay.
like didn't go through the practical experience requirement.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think would like
Yeah,
to
I
pass.
think that this is something that you can, reach out to the institute
Institute.
directly, and you can call them, you can speak to them, or you can send them an email. They are pretty responsive. So, you can definitely check this with them first.
Yeah.
What do they say about it?
Another question from Dhara Panchal. Hi, as you mentioned that minimum 2 years of post-qualification experience is required. Is part-time experience considered? I work in India for 1 year, 8 months, and I am working here since this past 1 year on the part-time basis for a company as an accountant. Can I register? I am aiming to give CFE in September 2025.
I think that should be fine.
Yeah.
As long as
Because
you don't mention it anywhere that you were doing it part-time, like in your resume
Yeah,
or
like in your resume, just generally mention that you were working along with your timelines. If they have any questions, then that's a
Yeah.
separate thing, but normally they shouldn't have.
Yeah, that should be fine. Because
Okay,
it post-qualification means that you are doing after your CA qualification. Even if it's part-time, I don't think it should impact your
Yeah.
eligibility.
there's a question from Malay. Student registration fees is annual. So if I pay now, then I can appear for exam in May 25 as well as in September 25, right?
Yeah, that is right. That is right. So like he would have to pay next year. And if this guy doesn't clear until September 25, he would have to pay another year's fees. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So there's another question from Sanjita. Hi, I got my transcript assessment done by CPA Alberta, where I was required to submit only my good standing certificate. I completed CA in this Jan 24. I came to Canada in April 24. I don't have post qualification experience, but once my transcript done, I received mail from CPA Alberta that I am a CPA PEP eligible and I can directly appear for CP. May I know what I have to do regarding my practical experience requirement. So this is a question.
Like yeah. So again, so that's
Yeah,
so
So
that is
she's saying like, but once I got even I'm confused. Like she's saying that she got enrolled and then she's looking for is she required for a practical experience requirement.
I think
but
Sanj
that's
because
the
this is
point.
a CPA, so because that's a different CPA body, right? Like CPA BC.
okay, CPL Alberta.
But
She
the rule is the same. So now that they are going to her for the practical experience form, like it means that
That she
because
requires
yeah, she
practical
require
experience.
because you need to show that you
Show that.
have 2 years of post qualification experience. Like it states on the website of CPA like body that you
Body.
have to have 2 years of post qualification experience.
Like CPA on
okay.
development is very much clear on the website. So
Yeah.
I think maybe we would have to check specifically for Alberta also.
Yeah.
In case Sanjita, if you require any further clarification, you can just unmute yourself and can have your question directly if you have misunderstood that. And okay, so there is a question from AK. For West, does the requirement for more than 5 years of experience start when we get ICAI membership or when we clear the final exam, as getting membership takes some time?
I think should be after clearing. But that's a very,
Yeah, after
open to
clearing,
interpretation.
yeah,
Okay.
after clearing is fine. Because I'll tell you that we had a couple of students who had like 1 year, 8 months of experience also.
Yeah.
So to them also we advised that you start with your process
Mhm.
because the student registration takes 3 months. And in those 3 months, you will be very near to completing your 2 years so that you don't miss
Mhm.
on that attempt right? So that
Yeah.
by the time you complete your 2 years, your student registration is in. When you register for the exam, you will have your 2 years complete.
Completed.
So that way you can,
And they also consider this. Like
yeah, they
there have
considered
been
this.
cases where they considered this.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I think same thing we can do with the 5 years like question also, the same thing. That you can start with your process and then your 5 years would be completed in a couple of months.
Yeah.
There is a question from Sanchi Jain, if you are aware of, I'm not sure, but what is the procedure to enroll for CPA who are not CA from India? We have,
I think then they will
I
have to
think it's
start from the very
start
beginning.
from scratch,
For
start from very beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Okay.
think for a couple of students who, who don't have CA background, we always ask them to also consider doing US CPA.
Yeah,
You know, because like if you are
it's
starting
a
CPA Canada from the very start, it's a very long
very
process.
long process.
Yeah, you could also, watch some videos or see if you find some resources for US CPA.
Yeah.
So we are having a channel, IndoCanada Professionals. You can just go into the YouTube and at ICP Social. There is a seminar which we did with Saminder Education. Their co-founder had a session, and it's been recorded, and everything has been mentioned over there. If you want to do a US CPA from sitting in Canada, I think that will make much more sense rather than starting a CPA Canada from scratch. Okay,
Right.
and
5 years.
and further, like everyone has a US dreams. I think everyone comes here from as a way to US, just a Canada is just a way to US rather than making their career over here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So better to go directly for CPA US. Okay,
yeah.
so there is another question from Harsha. I am a qualified chartered accountant with 5 years of experience, primarily in banking sector, specializing in roles such as product controller and financial investment banking. Would CPA board consider as a relevant? I think I already had this question.
Uh,
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
It is
yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Is it important to
And
have assurance
something-
as elective to start their own practice in assurance domain?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's right.
that's a good
That's a
point.
very
We
good
didn't cover
point.
this one, so that's a good point.
Yeah, so if you want to do your practice, you need to, or even not practice per se, but if you want to do public accounting in the future in
Yeah.
your own firm, then you need to have
Have that.
assurance role as your elective.
Okay. Can we only study the technical notes in the crash course without going through nausea? We
Yeah,
can,
Yes,
but that's
totally.
the whole point of
yeah,
the notes that
yeah.
you don't have
Like
to,
that's just a one-stop solution. You won't have to refer to anything
and
else.
that's the best part. You don't have to refer to anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. And there is another question. Is CPA Canada valid in USA or vice versa?
Yeah, I think what we know is if you are a CPA Canada and you need to become a CPA US, you need to give one tax exam
Yeah,
in the US to
and you can
become a
convert your CPA
license.
Canada to CPA US.
And CPA US
So,
Canada, I think is relatively easier.
I can put some light on this. Like there has been they are having some agreement between both of boards have an agreement between both of them. If you are a CPA Canada and you have cleared it from start, what they have mentioned that you haven't enrolled in CPA Canada through any reciprocity program, you just need to give a CPA US taxation exam as mentioned by Ravneet, and you will be getting a CPA US degree. But yes, practically I have known a person. I'm not sure that's a correct thing or not, but yes, that person has done his CPA Canada through a reciprocity. He's a CA India, and he just gave one exam CPA US, and I'm not sure that that's a luck or that is something practically can be done. But yes, that I'm aware of, and vice versa. If you are a CPA US, if you have done CPA US sitting in India and you have
Yeah.
never traveled to Canada, you can get a CPA Canada degree as a lucky charm. It's a,
Yeah.
Because
that's a
one of my friends, she did her
yeah,
US CPA from India, and then she came to Canada. But then
yeah,
obviously she converted her US CPA to CPA
it's
Canada,
CPA.
and she didn't
Yeah.
have to give any exams.
I've known many person like nothing like nothing boosting about CA India, but there's many people like over here over there like who are not able to do CA India. They tend to go for CPA US
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
at least. And over here when they land over here, so CA India is just a CA India, and they are CPA US plus CPA Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's
That's right.
So, okay, so the another question was, is CPA Canada advisor, thank for Ravneet for the work, how long you notice? So far, so for the practical experience, so the question from Tanvi, so for the practical experience 5 year, if I take out the gaps in between, got my CA membership in January 2020, it comes to 3.5 to 4 years, but have completed 5 years. Since I got my membership, do I have to get VAS evaluation?
Looks like.
No,
Why?
but she
Because
has
she
her
doesn't have the
practical
experience, right?
experience.
But she has experience only for 3.5 to 4 years.
But then for the West, isn't it like if you just have like
5 years
oh,
of
but the
post-qualification
gaps.
experience.
I think again, this is very
Post-
specific. See,
specific,
it
yeah.
can go either ways. Either the institute will be okay that it has been 5 years since you've qualified, right? So they can,
But if you are
like get done
if you
with
are
it.
like targeting for May 25, I would suggest you to apply to the
Yeah,
institute
apply.
and parallelly also go through the VEST process so that it does not, take your time. It is just an additional cost,
I think
but
it's
there could
around
be a chance.
150 bucks or something
But
like
there
that
could
if
be a
you're
chance that
upgrading
you
your.
may be missing your attempt if they ask for VEST later on. So
Yeah,
Perfect.
maybe, yeah, and maybe just, try calling them and asking them because a lot of students we asked,
do that.
yeah, a lot of
Definitely do
students
that.
do that because you can just clearly get your answers on the call or over an email.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we are done with all the questions. Thank you, Ravni.
Okay,
No,
Thank you,
perfect.
Nit. And you have been awesome. And you make a great couples, you have a great chemistry.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.